What if I told you that a single text message during dinner with my parents would expose the darkest family secret imaginable? And that by the end of this story, the people I trusted most would be behind bars? My name is Sarah. 3 months ago, I thought I had the perfect family. Mom. Dad. Sunday dinners every week without fail. Picture this: mahogany dining table, Mom's famous lasagna steaming in the center. Dad cracking his usual terrible jokes. I was 24, living in my own apartment downtown. But every Sunday at 6 p.m. sharp, I'd drive the 20 minutes to their house in Maple Grove. Same routine for years. Mom would set 3 places. Dad would open a bottle of wine. We'd talk about work, weather, anything normal families discuss. That Sunday started exactly the same. October 15th. I remember the date because it's burned into my memory forever. I walked through their front door like I had hundreds of times before. Mom hugged me. Dad asked about my job at the marketing firm. Everything felt safe. But something was different that night. Mom seemed nervous. Her hands shook slightly as she served the lasagna. Dad kept checking his phone. Not unusual for him, but he was doing it every 30 seconds. I chalked it up to work stress. He was a bank manager. Always busy. We sat down to eat. The grandfather clock in the hallway ticked loudly. Mom barely touched her food. Dad kept glancing at the windows. The blinds were drawn tight. That was weird. Mom loved natural light, even in the evening. Everything okay? I asked. Mom forced a smile. Of course, honey. Just tired. But her eyes darted to Dad. He gave her a look I couldn't interpret. Sharp. Warning. That's when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. We had a no phones during dinner rule. But something made me look. The message appeared on my screen. Get up and leave. Now. Don't say anything to your parents. My blood went cold. I stared at the words. Read them again. Who would send this? Why? I looked up at my parents. They were eating quietly, but watching me. Both of them. Studying my face. The phone buzzed again. Same number. Trust me. Your life depends on it. Go to your car and drive away. My hands started trembling. This had to be a prank. Some sick joke. But the fear in the messages felt real. Urgent. Desperate. I stood up slowly. I need to use the bathroom. Mom's fork clinked against her plate. You okay, sweetie? Her voice was too high. Too forced. Yeah, just stomach acting up. I walked toward the hallway bathroom. But instead of going in, I grabbed my purse from the entry table. My keys were inside. Heart pounding, I opened the front door as quietly as possible. The cool October air hit my face. I wanted to run, but forced myself to walk normally to my car. Every step felt like an eternity. The porch light cast long shadows across the driveway. I expected to hear the front door open behind me. Mom calling my name. Dad demanding I come back inside. But there was only silence. I got in my car. Started the engine. Hands shaking so badly I could barely grip the steering wheel. As I backed out of the driveway, I saw the dining room window. 2 silhouettes still sitting at the table. Not moving. Just watching. I drove 3 blocks before pulling over. My phone was buzzing non-stop. The unknown number. Good. Keep driving. Don't go home. Don't go to friends. Find a public place. Coffee shop. Restaurant. Somewhere with people. Who was this? How did they know where I was? I looked in my rearview mirror. The street behind me was empty. But paranoia crept up my spine like ice water. Another text. 24-hour diner on 5th Street. Corner booth. Come alone. This was insane. I should call the police. Report some stalker. But something about those messages, they didn't feel threatening. They felt protective. Like someone was trying to save me from something terrible. I drove to the diner. Neon lights flickered in the window. Pete's 24-hour EATS. A few customers scattered across worn vinyl booths. I chose the corner booth as instructed. Ordered coffee I didn't want from a tired-looking waitress. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. I was about to leave when a woman slid into the booth across from me. Mid-50s, graying hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked exhausted. Haunted. "Sarah?" she asked quietly. I nodded, too shocked to speak. "My name is Detective Lisa Chen. I've been investigating your parents for 8 months." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What?" My voice came out as a whisper. She pulled out a badge. "Real. Official. What I'm about to tell you will change everything you believe about your family. But you need to hear it. And you need to decide if you're brave enough to help us stop them." My coffee cup rattled against the saucer. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. "Stop them from what?" Detective Chen leaned forward. Her voice dropped even lower. "Your parents aren't who you think they are, Sarah. Robert and Helen Manning are not their real names. They've been running an identity theft ring for over 15 years. But that's not the worst part. The diner suddenly felt too bright. Too loud. I wanted to cover my ears, run away, pretend this conversation wasn't happening. "You're wrong. My parents are good people. They work normal jobs. Your father doesn't work at First National Bank," she interrupted. "He's never worked there. The building he goes to every day? It's a front. They process stolen identities, forge documents, launder money through fake accounts." I stared at her. The words didn't make sense. Couldn't make sense. "That's impossible. I've been to his office. Met his co-workers. Actors," Detective Chen said simply. "Paid to maintain the illusion. Your parents have built an entire fake life to hide what they really do." The room started spinning. I gripped the edge of the table. "Even if that were true, why are you telling me? Why not just arrest them?" Her expression darkened. "Because tonight, we discovered they're planning to disappear. New identities. New country. And Sarah." She paused, studying my face. "They were going to kill you first." The words hung in the air like poison. Kill me. My own parents. The people who raised me, loved me, taught me to ride a bike and helped with homework and celebrated every birthday. You're lying. But even as I said it, images flashed through my mind. Mom's nervous behavior. Dad checking his phone. The drawn blinds. The way they both watched me read that first text message. Detective Chen pulled out a tablet, swiped to a recording. "This was taken from a listening device we planted in your parents' bedroom yesterday morning." She pressed play. My father's voice filled my ears through small speakers. "Has to be done tonight, Helen. She's getting suspicious. Asking too many questions about my work." My mother's voice responded. "She's our daughter, Robert. There has to be another way. She's not really our daughter, and you know it. We took her because we needed the perfect family cover. But she's a liability now. If the FBI gets to her first. So what are you suggesting?" My father's voice turned cold, calculating. "Dinner. Her usual Sunday visit. I'll put something in her wine. Make it look like a heart condition. She's young, but these things happen. Tragic, but believable." The recording stopped. I stared at Detective Chen, my world crumbling piece by piece. That can't be real. There's more. She swiped to another file. Birth certificate. Hospital records. Sarah Manning was born to Robert and Helen Manning on March 15, 1999. But Sarah, that child died in the hospital 3 days after birth. Sudden infant death syndrome. She showed me the death certificate. My name. My supposed birth date. But not my life. So who am I? The question came out broken, barely audible. "Your real name is Emma Rodriguez. You were kidnapped from a grocery store parking lot in Phoenix when you were 6 months old. Your parents, your real parents, they never stopped looking for you." The diner around me faded into background noise. Everything I knew about myself was a lie. My name. My family. My entire existence built on the foundation of other people's crime. "Why are you telling me this now?" I managed to ask. Because we need your help to catch them. And because... She hesitated. Your real parents are still alive, Sarah. Emma. They're still looking for you. I started crying then. 24 years of lies unraveling in a 24-hour diner. The people I called mom and dad were kidnappers, criminals, and would-be murderers. My real family was somewhere out there, probably assuming I was dead. What do you need me to do? I whispered. Detective Chen smiled grimly. Help us catch them in the act. Tomorrow night, they're meeting with their contact to finalize new identities and travel documents. We know where. We know when. But we need someone they trust to deliver them straight into our trap. They don't trust me anymore. They were going to poison me tonight, remember? But they don't know that you know. As far as they're concerned, you left dinner feeling sick. Probably went home to bed. If you show up tomorrow, acting normal, apologetic about leaving early. She shrugged. They might believe they still have the perfect cover. I thought about it. The risks. The danger. But also the possibility of justice. Of finally meeting my real family. Of stopping these monsters from hurting anyone else. What's the plan? Detective Chen outlined everything. The meeting location, an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. The time, 11 p.m. My role, convince my fake parents to take me with them, claiming I knew about their business and wanted in. It sounded like suicide. They'll know I'm lying, I protested. I can't just walk up and say, hey, I know you're criminals, let me join your identity theft ring. You'd be surprised how well greed works as motivation, Detective Chen replied. Tell them you've been struggling financially, that you found some of their documents by accident, that you want a cut of the profits or you'll go to the police. And if they try to kill me on the spot, she tapped her earpiece. We'll have eyes and ears on you the entire time. First sign of trouble, we move in. I agreed. Looking back, I'm not sure why. Maybe it was the need for truth after a lifetime of lies. Maybe it was curiosity about my real parents. Or maybe I just wanted revenge against the people who stole my life. The next day dragged by in slow motion. I called in sick to work. Spent hours rehearsing what I'd say. How I'd act. Detective Chen had given me a wire to wear and a panic button disguised as a bracelet. At 10:30 p.m., I drove to my fake parents' house. The lights were on. Both cars in the driveway. I sat in my car for 5 minutes, building courage. When I knocked on the front door, my fake mother answered. She looked surprised to see me. Sarah, what are you doing here so late? We need to talk, I said, pushing past her into the living room. My fake father looked up from a laptop. The screen showed what looked like passport photos and official documents. What's this about? He asked, closing the laptop quickly. I took a deep breath. I know what you do for a living, Dad. The bank manager thing is bullshit. Their faces went pale. My fake mother sat down heavily on the couch. I found some of your documents, I continued, lying smoothly. Social security cards with different names. Birth certificates that don't match. I'm not stupid. My fake father stood up slowly. Sarah, I think you're confused. Robert Manning isn't your real name, is it? I interrupted. Neither is Helen. The silence stretched between us. Finally, my fake mother spoke. How long have you known? A few weeks. I've been watching, paying attention. You guys aren't very good at hiding things. My fake father's expression shifted from surprise to calculation. What do you want? In. I sat down across from them. Whatever you're doing, I want a piece. I'm drowning in student loans and credit card debt. My marketing job barely pays rent. They exchanged looks. Having a conversation without words. It's not that simple, my fake mother said. What we do, it's dangerous. If you get caught, I'm already caught, I replied. I'm broke, going nowhere, living paycheck to paycheck. At least your way offers a future. My fake father reopened his laptop. You have no idea what you're asking for. Then explain it to me. He turned the screen toward me. Dozens of files. Photos. Documents, identity profiles. We create new people, he said. Take information from the deceased, the disappeared, the forgotten. Build complete lives around those identities. And then, sell them to people who need to vanish. Criminals running from the law. People escaping abusive relationships. Wealthy individuals avoiding taxes or legal troubles. I nodded as if impressed. How much money are we talking about? A complete identity package? $50,000 minimum. Sometimes more. I whistled low. How many do you sell per year? Enough to live very comfortably, my fake mother said. But Sarah, if you're serious about this, there's no going back. Once you're in for life. I understand. My fake father checked his watch. We have a meeting tonight. Big client. Worth $500,000. If you really want in. He paused, studying my face. You can come with us. See how it works. My heart pounded, but I kept my expression neutral. Tonight. 1 hour. But if you come, you need to understand the rules. No questions during the meeting. No unnecessary talking. And absolute loyalty to the family business. I almost laughed at the word family. These people had stolen me as a baby, lied to me my entire life, and were planning to murder me less than 24 hours ago. But I nodded solemnly. I'm ready. We drove to the warehouse district in my fake father's car. I sat in the back seat, the wire taped to my chest feeling like it might burn through my skin. The panic button bracelet was heavy on my wrist. The warehouse looked abandoned from the outside. Broken windows, rust stains on metal walls. But lights glowed from inside as we approached. Remember, my fake father said as we walked to the entrance. Say nothing unless spoken to directly. Let us handle everything. A man opened the door before we could knock. Tall, thin, with eyes that looked like they'd seen too much violence. You're late, he said. Traffic, my fake father replied. They shook hands. This is our daughter. She's joining the business. The man looked me up and down. You sure about that? Family operations get complicated when they go wrong. She's smart, motivated, and she needs the money. We followed him into the warehouse. The space had been converted into an office of sorts. Computers, printers, cameras for ID photos. And people. At least 6 others working at various stations. Impressive operation, I said, genuinely surprised by the scale. 20 years in the making, the tall man replied. Your parents are 2 of our best suppliers. My fake mother looked proud. I felt sick. So, the tall man continued, tonight's client is special. High priority extraction. Government witness who changed his mind about testifying. Needs to disappear completely and permanently. He led us to a back room where a nervous-looking man in his 50s sat at a metal table. Mr. Patterson, the tall man said, meet your new identity specialists. My fake father sat down across from Mr. Patterson. We understand you need to be someone else by tomorrow morning. Tonight if possible, Patterson replied. His hands shook as he spoke. They found my safe house. I've got maybe 6 hours before they track me here. Who's looking for you? My fake mother asked. The Volkov family. Russian mob. I was supposed to testify against their money laundering operation next week. I felt the blood drain from my face. These weren't just identity thieves. They were helping dangerous criminals escape justice. My fake father opened a briefcase full of documents. We can have you on a plane to South America by dawn. New name, new history, new life. But it's going to cost extra for the rush job. How much? $1 million. Patterson didn't hesitate. Done. They spent the next hour creating his new identity. Thomas Miller, retired accountant from Ohio. The fake documents looked absolutely authentic. Passport, driver's license, birth certificate, even a fake employment history. There's just one final step, the tall man said as they finished. We need to eliminate any loose ends. He pulled out a gun. My fake parents didn't look surprised. What loose ends? Patterson asked, suddenly alert to the danger. Well, the tall man smiled coldly. You can identify all of us now. And our operation. That's a liability we can't afford. Patterson started to stand, but another man grabbed him from behind. Wait, this wasn't part of the deal was to give you a new identity, my fake father said calmly. We never promised you'd live to use it. I watched in horror as they bound Patterson to the chair. This wasn't just identity theft. It was murder. And my fake parents were part of it. The tall man turned to me. First lesson in the family business, kid. Sometimes witnesses need to be permanently silenced. I nodded, trying not to vomit. The wire pressed against my chest. Detective Chen and her team had to be hearing this. They had to move soon. Of course, I managed to say. No loose ends. The tall man raised his gun toward Patterson's head. Exactly. Clean, and the warehouse exploded with light and noise. Police. Everybody down. FBI agents swarmed through every entrance. Dozens of them, armed, shouting commands. The tall man spun toward the door, gun still raised. Detective Chen appeared in the doorway. Drop your weapon. What happened next felt like slow motion. The tall man turned his gun toward me instead of surrendering. If I'm going down, my fake father tackled him from the side. They both crashed into the metal table. The gun fired into the ceiling. More agents flooded in. Within minutes, everyone except Patterson and me was in handcuffs. Detective Chen approached me. You okay? I pulled off the wire with shaking hands. That was horrible. You did great. We got everything on tape. The whole operation, all the players, confession to multiple murders. I looked at my fake parents in handcuffs. My fake mother was crying. My fake father stared at me with something that might have been disappointment. Or pride. I couldn't tell. What happens now? I asked. Now, Detective Chen said gently, you get to meet your real family. The drive to the FBI field office felt surreal. Like waking up from a nightmare into a dream I wasn't sure I deserved. Detective Chen briefed me on the ride about what to expect. Your real parents, Maria and Carlos Rodriguez, they never gave up hope, she explained. They've maintained a website, hired private investigators, worked with missing children organizations for over 20 years. Do they know that you found me? They know we have a lead. They don't know you're alive yet. We wanted to confirm everything first, get DNA results, make sure I'm really their daughter. Yes. We pulled into the FBI building's parking garage. I felt like I was floating outside my own body, watching someone else's life unfold. The DNA test was simple. A cotton swab against the inside of my cheek. But the waiting felt eternal. Detective Chen sat with me in a conference room, explaining what came next. The investigation will take months. Your fake parents are facing charges for kidnapping, identity theft, money laundering, conspiracy to commit murder, and dozens of other crimes. They'll likely spend the rest of their lives in prison. I should have felt satisfied. Justice served. But mostly I just felt empty. Hollow. What about me? What happens to Sarah Manning? Legally, Sarah Manning never existed. The real Sarah Manning died as an infant. You'll need to reclaim your original identity as Emma Rodriguez. New social security number, driver's license, all your official documents. What about my job? My apartment? My friends? That's up to you. You can tell people as much or as little as you want about what happened. But Emma, you need to understand your life is about to change completely. An hour later, a technician entered with the DNA results. Positive match, he said simply. 99.9 certainty. I stared at the paper. Emma Rodriguez. That was my real name. Detective Chen smiled. Ready to call your parents? The phone rang twice before a woman answered. Hello, Mrs. Rodriguez. This is Detective Lisa Chen with the FBI. I'm calling about your daughter Emma. Silence. Then, Emma, did you find something? A clue, or Mrs. Rodriguez, I'm calling to tell you we found her. Emma is alive, and she's safe. The sound that came through the phone wasn't quite a scream, wasn't quite crying. It was pure, raw emotion. Joy and grief and disbelief all mixed together. She's alive. My baby is alive. She's alive. She's 24 years old, and she's here with me right now. Would you like to speak with her? Another pause. Then, Carlos, they found her. Detective Chen handed me the phone. My hands shook as I lifted it to my ear. Emma. The voice was soft, tentative, afraid to hope too much. Hi, I whispered. Mom. She broke down completely then. Sobbing with such intensity one was afraid she might collapse. In the background, I could hear a man crying too. My father. My real father. We never stopped looking, she said through the tears. Never stopped believing you were out there somewhere. I don't remember you. I'm sorry. I was so young when. Don't be sorry, baby. Don't ever be sorry. You were just a baby. But we remember everything. Every day of your life until you were taken. We talked for 20 minutes. She told me about the day I was born, my first tooth, the songs she used to sing to put me to sleep. I listened to this woman who was a stranger but also, genetically, the most important person in my world. When can we see you? She finally asked. They live in Phoenix, Detective Chen said. We can arrange a meeting whenever you're ready. Tomorrow, I said without hesitation. I want to meet them tomorrow. The flight to Phoenix was the longest 3 hours of my life. Detective Chen came with me, along with an FBI victim advocate named Jessica who specialized in reunion cases. Don't put too much pressure on yourself, Jessica advised. These reunions are emotional, but they're also complicated. You've lived an entire life apart from these people. It takes time to build real relationships. But when I walked into the arrival gate and saw them waiting, something clicked into place. A woman with graying black hair and my exact eyes. A man with calloused hands and the same stubborn chin I saw in the mirror every morning. Maria Rodriguez took one look at me and started crying again. Oh my God. You look just like your grandmother. Carlos was more reserved, but when he hugged me, I could feel him shaking. Welcome home, Mija. We spent the next 3 days together. They showed me photo albums from my first 6 months of life. My nursery, which they'd kept exactly the same for 24 years. Videos of me taking my first steps, saying my first words. Papa, Maria said, pointing to the screen where baby me reached toward the camera. That was your first word. They told me about the day I was taken. How they'd gone to the grocery store, left me in the car seat for 30 seconds while they loaded groceries. Came back to find the car door open and me gone. The police said we were negligent, Carlos explained. That we should have never left you alone, even for a minute. They were probably right. But we were young parents, scared, not thinking clearly. We blamed ourselves for years, Maria added. Decades. If we'd just brought you into the store with us. It wasn't your fault, I said. The people who took me, they were professionals. They would have found another opportunity. We also talked about the family I'd missed. I had a younger brother, David, who was born 2 years after I was taken. He was in college now, studying engineering. And grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins. An entire extended family who'd mourned me for over 20 years. David wants to meet you, Maria said. But he's nervous. He's never had a sister before, and suddenly he discovers he's had one his whole life. I'm nervous too, I admitted. I don't know how to be someone's sister. You don't have to know anything, Carlos said. Family isn't about knowing how to act. It's about choosing to love each other despite all the complications. The hardest conversation came on my last day in Phoenix. We were sitting in their backyard, drinking coffee and watching the sunset, when Maria asked the question I'd been dreading. What were they like? The people who raised you? I'd been thinking about how to answer this. The truth was complicated. Robert and Helen Manning were kidnappers and criminals who'd stolen my life. But they'd also fed me, clothed me, helped with homework, attended school plays, celebrated birthdays. They weren't cruel to me, I said carefully. They treated me like their daughter. But everything was a lie. My name, their names, their jobs, our family history. Everything. Did they love you? Maria asked quietly. I thought about it. I think they convinced themselves they did. But you can't really love someone while lying to them about everything. Love requires truth. And do you love them? That was the hardest question. I loved who I thought they were. But those people never existed. We sat in silence for a while, watching the Arizona sunset paint the sky orange and purple. I'm angry, I finally said. I'm angry that they stole 24 years of my life with you. I'm angry that David grew up without knowing his sister. I'm angry that you spent decades thinking I was dead. Carlos reached over and took my hand. Anger is okay, Mija. You have every right to be angry. But I'm also grateful, I continued. They could have sold me to worse people. Abusers, or, I don't know. In some twisted way, they protected me by keeping me. That doesn't make what they did okay, Maria said firmly. No, it doesn't. But it makes it complicated. I flew back to Chicago the next day with promises to return for Christmas. To meet David, to start building real relationships with my real family. But first, I had to deal with the legal aftermath of the case. The trial lasted 8 months. I testified against Robert and Helen Manning, along with the rest of their criminal organization. The prosecution laid out a network of identity theft that had operated for over 15 years, stealing millions of dollars and enabling dozens of dangerous criminals to escape justice. The evidence was overwhelming. Financial records, recorded conversations, testimony from other victims. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Robert Manning was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Helen Manning received 45 years. The rest of the organization got sentences ranging from 20 to 50 years. I was in the courtroom when the sentences were read. Helen looked at me from the defendant's table, tears streaming down her face. She mouthed the words "I'm sorry." Robert never looked at me at all. After the trial, Detective Chen and I had coffee at the same diner where this whole nightmare began. Any regrets? She asked. About helping catch them? No. They were dangerous people who hurt a lot of families. But I paused, stirring sugar into my coffee. I keep wondering what would have happened if I'd just ignored that first text message. You'd probably be dead, Detective Chen said bluntly. We found the poison they were planning to use. Fast-acting, hard to detect. Would have looked like cardiac arrest. Sometimes I think that might have been easier. Dying believing I was loved instead of living with the truth. You don't really believe that. She was right. I didn't. How did you know to warn me that night? I asked. Detective Chen smiled. We'd been monitoring their communications for months. When we intercepted the conversation about killing you, we had to act fast. One of our undercover agents got close enough to the house to see you through the dining room window. When you looked at your phone, he texted you. Who was the agent? Actually, it was me. I'd been watching the house all evening, waiting for the right moment to move in. But when I heard that dinner conversation, I knew we couldn't wait for backup. I stared at her. You saved my life. You saved your own life by listening. And then you risked it again to help us catch them. That took real courage, Emma. Emma. I was still getting used to my real name. Legally changing everything back had been a bureaucratic nightmare, but it was done. Emma Rodriguez, marketing coordinator, Phoenix native, daughter of Maria and Carlos. What's next for you? Detective Chen asked. I'm thinking about moving back to Phoenix. Start over completely. Be closer to my real family. That sounds healthy. Yeah. Sarah Manning had a life, but it was built on lies. Maybe Emma Rodriguez can build something real. 6 months later, I was living in a small apartment 20 minutes from my parents' house. I'd found a new job at a marketing firm in downtown Phoenix. Different city, different company, but similar work. Some things didn't need to change. David and I were slowly building a relationship. It was awkward at first. How do you bond with a sibling you never knew existed? But we discovered we had more in common than expected. Same dry sense of humor, same taste in movies, same stubborn streak we'd inherited from Carlos. It's weird, he told me one evening as we were having dinner with our parents. I always felt like something was missing from our family. Like there was an empty chair at the table. Now I know why. Maria cried happy tears. She did that a lot now. 24 years of grief doesn't disappear overnight, but it was being replaced by gratitude. I also started seeing a therapist who specialized in identity trauma. Dr. Sarah Kim helped me process the complex emotions around losing and reclaiming my identity. It's normal to feel like you're grieving, she explained during one of our sessions. Sarah Manning may have been built on lies, but she was still your identity for 24 years. Letting go of that person, even to become your authentic self, is a form of loss. Sometimes I miss the simplicity, I admitted. When I believed I was just Sarah with normal parents and a normal life. Truth is often more complicated than fiction, but it's also more solid. The relationships you're building now with your real family, those are based on honesty. They'll be stronger because of it. She was right. My relationship with Maria and Carlos deepened every month. We discovered shared interests, family traditions, genetic quirks that made sense for the first time in my life. My chronic insomnia came from Carlos's side of the family. My artistic talent came from Maria. My stubbornness came from both. I also connected with the broader Rodriguez family. Aunts and uncles who remembered me as a baby, cousins who welcomed me back like I'd never been gone. A grandmother who cried every time she saw me because I looked so much like her late sister. You have your great-aunt Rosa's hands, she told me, holding my fingers up to the light. And her artistic eye. She was a painter, you know. Very talented. I'd never known why I was drawn to art. Sarah Manning's fake parents had no artistic inclination. But it turned out creativity ran in my blood. The first Christmas I spent with my real family was overwhelming in the best way. Dozens of relatives, traditional Mexican food, children running around speaking rapid-fire Spanish I was desperately trying to relearn. It's a lot, Maria said, finding me on the back patio taking a quiet moment. It's wonderful, I replied. I need to process sometimes. 24 years of being an only child in a quiet house, and suddenly I have this huge, loud, loving family. Take all the time you need, Mija. We're not going anywhere. That phrase became my anchor. They weren't going anywhere. For the first time in my adult life, I had people who loved me unconditionally, and who I could trust completely. But the healing wasn't linear. Some days were harder than others. I'd wake up missing the simplicity of my old life, or feeling guilty about the good memories I had with Robert and Helen Manning. Dr. Kim said this was normal. You can acknowledge that they provided for you while also recognizing the harm they caused, she explained. Trauma responses are complex. You don't have to hate everything about your past to move forward. The media attention was intense for a while. Kidnapped as baby, helps FBI catch criminal parents made national news. I did a few interviews, mostly to raise awareness about missing children cases, but eventually asked for privacy to heal. Some journalists tried to paint the story as a heartwarming reunion tale. Others focused on the criminal aspects. But the reality was more nuanced than any headline could capture. 1 year after the trial ended, I received